So it was a little bit nervy in the end, but Liverpool are heading to another Carabao Cup final thanks to a 1-1 draw with Fulham that secures a 3-2 aggregate victory. As I say, it was a little bit tricky at the end. I mean, for so much of this tie, Liverpool looked like they'd had it wrapped up really. Luis Diaz scores really early on, and for so much of it, they weren't really troubled. They held Fulham at arm's length, and it looked like it was really going to be cruising through. And Liverpool, they're more likely to get a goal that would extend the lead. But obviously that goal didn't come, and you always kind of knew really that Fulham would make a late push to get back in the tie, and so it proves you get that goal through Diop, and that makes for a really nervy finish, and Liverpool having to sort of sneak the way through in the end, and really, battling Fulham in those final minutes to make sure that they were the side that go to Wembley. And I think it was an interesting one from a tactical point of view, really, because I think, like I say, Liverpool, they already go into the game with a 1-goal advantage after that win at Anfield, and I think that made things really difficult for Fulham. Obviously, I think Marco Silva sides always have a decent record against Jurgen Klopp, not necessarily in terms of results, but I feel like they've got a bit of a habit of knowing how to get at Jurgen Klopp's sides. But it totally flips the challenge that they had, really. The fact that they came into this 1-goal down, and they couldn't just sit in deep and wait for the gaps to open up, because they knew Liverpool weren't going to take risks that they didn't need to. So that was the different question that Marco Silva had to answer, and I think in the early part of the game they didn't do a good job of that at all, really. They opened up a little bit too much, and Liverpool were finding it too easy to pass through the lines, and that was making it really easy to make chances. And obviously then when Diaz scores to make it 3-1 in aggregate, you think this is going to be a really easy evening for Liverpool, and it did prove as much, really. I mean, Liverpool were so in control for so much of this game. They didn't have to do much. They weren't having to create loads of chances, but they were still creating the odd chance. And they never really looked troubled at the back for so much of it as well. But as I say, you did always have in your back of your mind that Fulham were going to make that late push. They obviously weren't going to end up leaving that game wondering whether they would have had a chance if they'd have at least tried. And so they opened up a little bit more at the end. They made some changes, and that made them more threatening. And I actually think it's worth noting, I think some of Liverpool's changes around the hour marks, I think it's 67 minutes that he makes a double change, and Alexis McAllister and Darwin Núñez are both withdrawn at that point. I actually think, as much as Fulham's subs made them better, I think that sub in that moment, it kind of weakened Liverpool a little bit, because I think they missed a bit of control from McAllister in the middle, and also Darwin had been a threat all night, and I think they missed that easy ball in behind, and have someone who could scrap and fight for it there in Darwin. He'll always give you that. So I actually think that kind of made Liverpool a bit weaker, and then combined with the fact that Fulham were making the late push, they brought fresh legs on. That gave Liverpool the trickiest bit of the game, really, and that's the reason that Fulham ended up coming back into it and making those final sort of 15 minutes or so really nervy. But I will say, as much as I think Klopp maybe got those subs a little bit wrong, and Liverpool lost a bit of control in that moment, I think his two subs to seize control back were absolutely fantastic. He brings on Canate and Bobby Clark late on, and that adds Clark. He brings that little bit of extra energy that you need in midfield to see it out. Obviously, he's a willing runner, isn't he? He's going to work his socks off. He's a young kid being given opportunity, and he absolutely did that. I think that helped Liverpool reinvigorate the press a little bit and push Fulham back as much as he could. And then also you bring on Canate and go to sort of a back five there, and I think that sort of didn't help Fulham in terms of, if they were going to go aerial, they had to get the ball then past your likes of Virgil van Dijk. Obviously Canate came on and did well. You've already got Joe Gomez in there, who's a good defender in those situations. So I thought, we're so used to talking about Jurgen Klopp's attacking subs in these sorts of games and the changes that he can make, and that's been a theme for this season. But actually, I thought a couple of defensive subs, really, or defensively minded in the way he used them, they really sort of saw things through for Liverpool and made sure that last 5 minutes or so they were much better, really, in terms of managing it. It had been in the 10 minutes prior to that, and those subs, as I said, that prior to that had maybe lost a little bit of control. So in the end, I would say, a deserved victory for Liverpool, even though they had that nerviness towards the end. I think, over the two legs, there can be no argument, really, that they've been the better side. And another trip to Wembley awaits, and if Liverpool really are going for a quadruple this season, then, well, this is the first chance to get some silverware on the board, and they face Chelsea, who they've beaten in two finals a couple of years ago as well. So they'll be full of confidence going into that, and something else for Liverpool to look forward to under Jurgen Klopp. So I'm going to go into the individual performances now, as I usually talk about, and go through the players one by one. And I'll start, of course, with Quansah Kelleher in goal. I mean, I saw some talk before the game kicked off about the idea that maybe Alisson should be in for this one, but I think people will make that call, but for me, Jurgen Klopp as a manager, he only has the respect and the sheer respect he has from his players and the love he gets from his players because he's a man who's true to his word. And he said to Gavin Kelleher at the start of this season, look, you are my number one goalie. You're going to be in this competition. You are going to play all the Carabao Cup as he has done in the past. And you would lose the respect of the players if you don't stick to that. So, okay, I totally get that Kelleher is not as good a goalkeeper as Alisson, but he had to stick with him here. And I don't think he let the manager down at all. Maybe some of his performances this season haven't been right up there in terms of level, but I thought tonight you could have really no complaints with the way he performed. There's a cross that he cuts out early doors. He dives across, and if he doesn't do that and get a hand on it, Deco-Reed's got a certain header at the back post that looks basically a tap-in, so a crucial moment there. And then he makes a save from Jimenez as well, also in the first half. It's a really decent save down low to his right-hand side. I mean, the goal goes in, and I don't think you can have a lot to criticise him about for that one. It's such a close-range shot. If the keeper makes a save in that one, you're overjoyed, really. It's not one you'd expect him to save. I think the one moment you were questioning from Kelleher with his performance was he comes to claim a ball and misses it, and I think it's Tosin who gets a header on that, and that results in Fulham hitting the post actually with the ball coming down there. But other than that, I thought he did pretty well, and again, as I say, because of the way this manager works, I expect Kelleher to be in goal for the final as well when that comes around. And I think he's done enough in these appearances in the Carabao Cup this season to deserve that. And also, let's be straight about this, he also knows how to win this tournament. He has done it before. He's been in goal as Liverpool have won the Carabao Cup before, so every faith that he can go on and do that again. And another, as I say, decent performance from him today. So just moving to the defence now and talk about Conor Bradley. Obviously, real possibility is his last game for a little while, with Trent Alexander-Arnold being close, but I thought, again, pretty decent from him. Not maybe as outstanding as a couple of other games he's had, but I thought he wins 4 out of his 8 ground duels, which is a pretty solid ratio for a right back. He makes 6 recoveries, and he's just constantly busy, isn't he, in terms of his defensive work. If a man beats him down the outside, he's always getting back in there and making it hard for them. So I just love that element of his performance again today. And Liverpool were in control for a lot of this, and Conor Bradley, he's getting tested by those little exchanges that Fulham like to do. They like to make little triangles out wide to make it difficult for your fullbacks, and I thought Conor Bradley dealt with that really well. So a big part of why Liverpool were solid in that area and done really well. And if this is his last game for a little while, we're not sure whether Trent will maybe be ready to start that Norwich game or whether he sticks with Bradley. But I think even if this is the last game for a while, he's been absolutely brilliant, hasn't he, since he's come in. And again, to play in a game like this where he's in a semi-final and it was played across the 2 legs to help Liverpool get into a final at this young age. He's only 20. What a marvellous experience for him, and I hope a springboard to him being in the squad for the long term, really. And in fact, talking about that, I'll move on to the guy who was alongside him, Jarell Quansah. Another fantastic performance from him. I mean, we know that the manager's maybe a little bit worried about Canate and the fact that he's got a tendency to pick up muscle injuries, hasn't he, when he's overused. So that is a big reason why Quansah comes into the starting 11. But at the end of the day, the manager would not be using a player he doesn't have ultimate faith in, and I think we see again with the very fact that Quansah is in the starting 11 here, it shows that he is genuinely viewed as a long-term option at centre-half for Liverpool. Whether that has any effect on what they do in the summer will be an interesting one, and I think that's a debate worth having. But for in the short term, definitely a genuine option, and is viewed as a first-team option at centre-half by the manager, and he keeps backing it up. I mean, he gets 7 clearances, 7 recoveries, which I think, the clearances were particularly key in those last moments when Fulham were really pushing and going for, a bit of an aerial bombardment. He was absolutely key to keeping that out. He only completes 3 out of 11 long balls, which I think is quite an interesting statistic, because he does try those lengthy passes, doesn't he? And he, didn't quite come off for him tonight, but he gets an assist incredibly. I mean, he's got 3 assists coming into the Liverpool first team, and he's a centre-back, and he's not played every game either, which I just think is remarkable, really, in half a season. Just shows how much quality he's got, and to drop the ball to Diaz, obviously it's a great take and a great finish in the end, but it's a really good ball that sort of turns the fullback a little bit and makes it difficult for him. So to clock up another assist is remarkable, and I can't speak highly enough, really, of the way Quansah is playing as a 20-year-old to come into this team, and he's been a big part of Liverpool staying steady despite losing a key man really in Joel Matip to injury. So yeah, again, much like Bradley, what an incredible experience for him, and he's going to be a massive part of this squad between now and the end of the season. Now, I'll just move on to his partner now, Virgil van Dijk. I thought he was imperious again in this game. Wins 5 out of 5 aerial duels. Again, we know the aerial threat Fulham have. They like to go long to Jimenez. I thought Jimenez in the first leg actually gave Virgil van Dijk more trouble than I've seen many players give him at all. I know Virgil van Dijk was coming off the back of a little bit of an illness before the first leg, but still Jimenez giving him a bit of a torrid time in terms of winning aerial duels. Just even when Van Dijk won an aerial duel, he was leaning into him to make it head it off in a different direction he'd maybe want to and into danger, and obviously he was involved around that first goal, but I thought he's absolutely back to his best in this one, as he has been in the games ever since that first leg really. And as I say, 5 out of 5 aerial duels despite Jimenez being really handy in the air, makes 8 clearances, and one thing he did a lot of, which I thought was really helpful for taking the pressure off Liverpool, was every time Fulham did manage to get some success out wide and they got a cross in, it always seemed to be Van Dijk getting in front of his man. That run to the front post, Fulham were looking for that constantly, and Van Dijk was there every single time, getting a leg in, getting a clearance, and either giving away a corner or getting it clear. I just thought it was a marvellous performance from him really, and it's so good to see the captain back to his best, as he's so crucial for Liverpool, and I thought another game really that evidenced that. Now I'm just going to finish up with the defence now by talking about Joe Gomez, and kind of a bit of a quieter game for him, I thought. Obviously he's been so involved since he's moved out to that left back spot, hasn't he, and people trying to work out whether they can exploit him almost because he's not a natural left back. But I thought again, a game where Fulham didn't really have much joy down his side and maybe tried a little bit more down Conor Bradley's side. He wins 3 out of 7 ground duels, which is not amazing, but it's not really poor either. That those statistics can sometimes, it's hard to take absolutely everything from them, but and not massively dangerous in possession. He obviously has a shot at the end where he's trying and he shoots one over. He's absolutely desperate to get that goal. We all absolutely know that. But like I say, a solid performance I think from him, but nothing maybe to write home about. But he did his job and he helps Liverpool get through. And again, we see Andy Robertson is back in the squad for this one. If Joe Gomez comes out of the team now for a little while and Robertson gets a run, what a job he has done as that standing left back. He's been absolutely fantastic for Liverpool and done better I think than anybody could have expected when Kostas Tsimikas picked up that shoulder injury. So yeah, he's been brilliant, and I'm sure we will see him in and out the team plenty between now and the end of the season because he's such a massive part of this squad. Now move into the midfield now and start with the holding midfielder Alexis McAllister. It's a funny statistic here that I've got written down actually. He wins 0 out of 5 tackles, which sounds terrible, but I actually think sometimes the way these statistics are defined don't really give you the best picture, and I don't think that was really reflective of his actual performance. He wins 7 out of 13 ground duels. I thought he was busy in that way. I thought he did enough to get around. I thought he was really steady in possession as well. I think his pass completion's around 80%, somewhere around there. I thought he was really good at sort of taking the pressure off Liverpool, and I mentioned it early in the video. I actually think when McAllister goes off and you don't have that guy who's coming deep constantly to receive the ball as naturally, you kind of lost the ability to get out, and that's when Fulham started to get joy in terms of the press and really made it difficult for Liverpool. Liverpool couldn't keep possession in those stages, and I thought the McAllister substitution was a big part of that. So I thought a really steady performance from him. Maybe not the heights of Bournemouth which we saw the game before, but I really just think he's top class in that number 6 role. And again, you saw that today. He's like I say, not his absolute best performance, but just so steady in there and keeps the ball moving and keeps Liverpool away from being pressed out of a game. So yeah, he was a big miss when he went off, and I think that you saw really just how important he is. So I'll move on now into the midfielders in front of him, and Harvey Elliott, again, a kind of a quiet game from him really. You maybe would have wanted him to see more from him. He creates 1 chance, he only wins 1 out of 6 ground duels, but I think the game is so dictated by the fact that Liverpool take that early lead and are essentially protecting a two goal lead, so they don't really have to open up it for so much of this game at all really. So that really harms someone like Elliott, who likes to be penned around the opposition box, looking for little gaps, looking for holes. Didn't get as much chance to do that, and I think that's why he ends up with 1 chance created. And I think, again, 1 out of 6 ground duels doesn't necessarily reflect the fact that, okay, maybe he didn't win some of his challenges that he was involved in, but he was constantly working. You know, I think his work rate, you just couldn't complain about that in terms of if Fulham did break, he was always back there to support the fullback or get into the spaces that made it difficult for Fulham to break Liverpool down. So I actually thought it quietly quite a decent performance, particularly on the defensive side of things. I think he worked his socks off, and that's, you always get that as an absolute guarantee when you're talking about Harvey Elliott. You know, even in games where things don't absolutely go for him, maybe on both sides of the ball, he will work and work and work, and he did that, and that's why, you know, Liverpool were solid for large swathes of this match. Really, he was a big part of that in terms of you just getting about and filling gaps and working hard, even if it doesn't necessarily massively show up in the numbers. Now, I'll just finish up on midfield now with Ryan Gravenberch, and I really want to highlight him. For me, probably my favourite midfield performance of the night, because, you know, you see him in the starting 11, obviously that's to protect Curtis Jones, who had that slight, you know, he felt something, didn't he, at Bournemouth, so you don't want to risk him here. I thought so it was sensible really to bring Gravenberch into the team, but you know, you're worried about him sometimes because you've seen in his Liverpool career so far he can be inconsistent, and that's not just from game to game. I think he can be inconsistent in games. Really, you can have a moment of magic and then follow it up by a misplacing a 5-yard pass. So you know that's your worry around him. And with this game, you know, with it still being tight on aggregate coming into it, you're worried that, you know, you were hoping you want to see the best version of Ryan Gravenberch, and fortunately, I thought we absolutely saw it here. I thought, you know, again, he doesn't get a goal or assist. He's not, you know, not absolutely dominant in terms of his performance. But I think Klopp will absolutely have loved it, what he saw really from Gravenberch today, because of just how solid it was. He just did the job that Klopp wants from his midfielders. So an 89% passing accuracy, wins 5 out of 8 of his ground duels, 6 recoveries, 5 interceptions, just great defensive numbers, and then really solid on the ball, and showed a couple of really nice touches to turn away from players, which we know he's got in his locker, but he showed that and then backed it up with everything else you want on the defensive side of the ball, and using the ball really solidly in the same way that we see from Curtis Jones from week to week. And I think that's your key really to getting into this team, is being able to press really well and using the ball sensibly in midfield. That is what Klopp wants from his midfield, and I thought that for Gravenberch, like I say, even though it's not a star performance, he doesn't score a hat-trick or anything like that, I think quite a significant one for him in terms of it shows that he's learning, he's getting used to the demands of the manager, and I think this is a really good performance for him to build on going forward. So, you know, really impressive in a quiet sort of way, I thought, Gravenberch today. Now, I just finish up talking about the guys in the front line today. As I say, felt a little bit sorry for some of them in terms of the match status sort of dictated how it was going to go for them, with Liverpool being 2 goals to the good so early on. So I talk about Cody Gakpo. Obviously, he spent a lot of the game out on that right hand side, and he's not particularly a natural out there. You know, 1 shot, 1 chance created. But as I say, the game state really affects that in terms of he's just having to work back a lot, you know, just keep the ball, just be solid, not really take any massive risks. So don't think you can be too critical of that. Nunez, you know, despite the game state, I actually really kind of liked a lot of what he did. I thought, you know, he gets 3 shots, he always gets a lot of shots away, doesn't he? Creates 2 chances, so he was really, really threatening in everything he did. And again, I've mentioned earlier in the video, I thought when he went off, Liverpool lacking that threat that he offers in behind and coming short, I think they kind of missed him, and that made it easier for Fulham a little bit, particularly because Jota was the one who's coming on, and although he's a fantastic footballer, he doesn't offer, you know, that physical threat in terms of he doesn't occupy defenders in that physical way in terms of holding the ball up as well as Nunez does. So I thought Nunez was really missed when he went off, and even though he doesn't score, a really solid game from him. And I want to finish up now by just talking about Luis Diaz. Obviously he gets his goal, kind of lucky with the finish in terms of Leno, you think should do better, even though it takes 2 deflections, but the touch that precedes it is absolutely world class. He's coming inside the fullback and taking it on his chest to create that space for himself, and then to finish it off. He also gets 3 shots, you know, creates 3 chances. Just a brilliant performance all round from him. And I think, you know, he's kind of been up and down recently in terms of we're seeing him get back to his best, but then I thought, you know, in the last game maybe didn't quite reach those heights again. And I spoke in the last video about the fact that I think he's sometimes being asked to just be the the solid member of that front three and just be the one who keeps possession. But actually, you saw so much threat from him and creativity today, and that despite the fact that Liverpool had put themselves in that dominant position and weren't taking as many risks. And so really, really good performance from him, and another goal that he'll take so much from. And it makes me think, just to finish up on Diaz, that there was so much talk, wasn't there, about the idea that early part of this season when he had so much going on, and of course he just had those 2 knee injuries last season, that people were saying, his pace is gone, he's not the same player. I thought it was nonsense at the time, and I think he's proven since that it is. He's an absolutely key part of that attack that Liverpool have got, and he really is starting to get back to his best, and that's great news for Liverpool, because they need all these attackers to be in form as much as they can, because when one has a bit of a dip of performance, I say Gakpo today maybe wasn't at his absolute best, the other two picked up the slack, and that has to happen throughout this season, and that's a big part of Liverpool being so consistent in attack in general throughout this season has been the fact that there's always someone picking up the slack if someone's not performing, and that I think we see that today, we see that in most games. And I'm just going to finish up by talking about the subs. I said about Konate coming in and slotting in into that back five. Thought that really helped in terms of what he offers physically and his ability to win aerial duels. Jota, again, I kind of thought he was a little bit scruffy. He only completes 70% of his passes, and part of the reason that Liverpool lose a bit of control because Nunez was completing 81% of his passes. So you're giving the ball back to Fulham constantly, and that didn't massively help. And same with Jones coming on. I thought he wins 1 out of 3 of his ground duels, again just in a moment where you could do with him winning more of his ground duels, because Fulham are starting to turn the screw a little bit. And there's one in particular that he loses that sort of starts off a Fulham counter that he'll look back and say not his best sub performance. But I mean, I'm splitting hairs here. He's been fantastic all season, of course. And just want to mention Bobby Clark as well. Really busy when he came on, kept the ball well and grafted. And again, his ability to press and really push high, I really think helped put Liverpool a little bit back on the front foot in those last 5 minutes and to see it out. So everybody contributing there to another big win for Liverpool, or a draw that is virtually a win for Liverpool that sends them through to another Carabao Cup final. So it's what an exciting season we're having at the moment, or Liverpool are having at the moment. It's so much promise in this, and the fact they've already got themselves to a final. Can they get that first trophy over the line? We'll have to wait and see. Now, as usual, I'm going to finish up by asking you to let me know what you thought of the performances in the comments. It's always interesting to hear what you think, and if you disagree with anything I've said about the players and the way they performed in this one. Of course, please also like this video if you've enjoyed it, and if you don't subscribe, please do subscribe and come on board. As I've said, there's so much excitement happening around Liverpool at the moment. We're in the middle of a potential quadruple push that has already got its first final on the board, so a really good time to get involved in. For everyone who already does subscribe, I'm sure I'll see you guys very, very soon, because there's so many matches, so many competitions, and so much to look forward to. So I'll see you very soon.